What's up guys, welcome back. This is Anime Crossover. You'll be watching What If Naruto Was the Emperor of Elements, in the Avatar Part 2. Now, let's begin. Naruto's POV. During that same week, at a tribal assembly, my name was recorded in the Book of Waterbending Masters, a historical record maintained since the establishment of the Northern Water Tribe's capital. As a leader, I now have a voice in conferences where the future steps and life of the community are discussed. As the chief's son, I possessed certain advantages, and although I did not have the right to an additional vote, I wielded a degree of influence despite lacking mastery. However, attending these meetings can be quite unengaging. Significant events appear to be quite rare in the capital. Individuals are designated to oversee supplies, monitor catches, and inspect structures. They are the ones who provide reports during these meetings. I had to feign interest while resisting the urge to doze off. My efforts were acknowledged, although it was evident that some individuals were not fully engaged. The majority of attendees are of a commendable age, reflecting a period of tranquility. In times of conflict, it was primarily the youth who participated in such gatherings, as the older generation was quick to engage in combat to safeguard the younger members of society. I explored the possibility of permitting individuals of all genders to engage in the types of bending they desire. It is not uncommon to observe young men whose personalities may not align with the rigorous demands of waterbending in combat. They frequently excel in the role of healers instead. Occasionally, during the night, I would observe young women discreetly honing their waterbending skills using scrolls. If they were provided with adequate training, we would acquire suitable replacements for the current leaders. These individuals exhibit a strong drive. With the right guidance, they will achieve success independently. However, the system, established in the past, hinders the potential for these individuals to thrive. Not all situations are as dire as they may appear. The chief, the leader of the healing huts, along with my father's dedicated supporters and a select group of experts, typically aligns with my proposals. Nevertheless, this figure alone is insufficient to alter the principles set forth by our predecessors. Our ancestors are held in high regard here, and their decisions are often viewed with a sense of admiration, as if they possessed an inherent wisdom. A neutral faction will observe the progression of my efforts for the time being. The primary challenge arises from the steadfast traditionalists spearheaded by Paku. Your fiancé, whom you held in deep affection, has departed from your life. This occurred just prior to the wedding. Indeed, she did not merely depart, she hastily made her way to the farthest reaches of the globe. Such occurrences are not uncommon. However, following the departure of Kana, Sokka and Katara's grandmother, Paku has developed a strong fixation on traditions. He is a dedicated individual, consistently looking out for the water tribe, and I have frequently observed him engaging with children through the art of waterbending. Despite my behavior, he regarded me with a paternal expression, seemingly unbothered by my remarks. I must find a way to sway either the neutral parties or the more extreme factions. With over 75% of the votes in my favor, I am positioned to proceed with modifying specific prohibitions. For example, certain marriages are established without the agreement of the bride. It is generally expected that brides adhere to their parents' decisions regarding marriage. The initial example is Kana, followed by Yui, who had the option to evade the marriage arranged by her father. Throughout the series, her kindness and compassion were evident as she prioritized the water tribe over her personal interests. If anyone attempts to harm Yui, I will take decisive action against them. This matter requires a gradual approach for resolution. Following my success, I dedicated a significant amount of my time to engaging with the waterbending masters. That was the moment I recognized the distinction between the conflicts I experienced with my mother and the experts dedicated to honing their bending skills. It is important to acknowledge that June, even in the absence of formal instruction and structured practice, possesses the capability to outperform less skilled masters. Master Izamu initiated a challenge for a rematch against me. This time, the initial success was his. From our initial encounter, he had already discerned my strategies. On this occasion, he methodically focused on my vulnerabilities while effectively neutralizing my advantages. He stated that I possess minimal weaknesses. He asserts that I lack experience in combat with other waterbenders. However, my creativity, technical repertoire, Kai control, and precision are all exemplary. I achieved victory over him in the arena by adhering closely to my strategy. Over the course of a year, I meticulously observed all the masters, analyzing their fighting styles and pinpointing their strengths and weaknesses. I selected Master Izamu with careful consideration. He frequently engages at a distance, allowing me the opportunity to channel my energy into the ice. During the initial month, My losses outweighed my victories, however, by the second month, only formidable opponents, who, curiously, bore a resemblance to benevolent grandfathers, departed unscathed. The initial encounters with them were quite disorienting. In times of peace, individuals may rely on canes or exhibit signs of physical strain, yet when conflict arises, all signs of frailty disappear. They traverse the field with agility reminiscent of saiga antelopes, and certain individuals possess such formidable close combat abilities that they can incapacitate opponents with their hand-to-hand techniques. I frequently engaged Master Paku in combat due to his persistent nature, which I found quite frustrating. It provided an opportunity for me to express my frustrations. Observing my increased emotional responses during our battles, he once inquired about the reasons behind it, even extending an offer to assist with my concerns. He is indeed a commendable individual, though his idiosyncrasies leave much to be desired. I uncovered numerous innovative methods for manipulating water, techniques that were not even documented in the scrolls. Various strategies and approaches to enhance proficiency and command. This information is not documented. During the meeting, I brought up the issue, and they agreed to provide me with notebooks to document all pertinent information, as a precaution. If these notes were to be found in the library, waterbenders who engage in healing practices discreetly could access them. The issue with the library scrolls is that they primarily document established positions for techniques and more intricate concepts, yet they fall short in providing methods for cultivating the control necessary to execute these techniques effectively. Our dedicated individuals must strive to exceed their boundaries to fully comprehend the teachings outlined in the scrolls. Concurrently, I commenced my training in healing bending. While there is no prohibition against men pursuing healing bending, enrolling in such a practice may lead to judgment from others, who may perceive it as a sign of weakness. In my situation, addressing a waterbending master may pose significant risks. My mentor on this journey has been Yugoda, who was once a close associate of Kana. She also evaluated what I was already aware of. Your theory is impressive, and you provided me with new insights, Yugoda remarked with a courteous smile after evaluating my abilities. I appreciate your comments regarding the expansion of rights for the tribe's women. It's a commendable initiative. If only you had been born earlier, when many girls sought opportunities beyond the tribe to escape unwanted marriages, she added, her smile fading and her gaze becoming distant, as if lost in a memory. Understood, she replied, responding assertively. We will begin with the fundamentals. Initially, we will focus on healing animals, starting with fish. Following that, we will progress to rodents, and only after that, under my guidance, we will address minor external injuries in humans. Once we establish a solid foundation, we can advance to moderate and severe injuries. I have only instructed young girls previously, never a complete waterbending master, she remarked with a chuckle. I trust you are accustomed to dealing with blood. At my age, it can be challenging to attend to students who may faint multiple times throughout the day. My studies commenced with this distinctive monologue. Initially, I focused on sensing my Kai, a process that would have been time-consuming had I not begun the preparations to activate my chakras. Chakras serve as energy centers, acting as the primary gateways for the flow of Kai. Discovering the flow within my body was relatively straightforward. However, the task of channeling even a single drop of Kai into water once appeared insurmountable. The energy is quite intense. Initially, I focused on internalizing the movement within my body, and only after a period of time was I able to express it externally. However, once it was released, it quickly faded away. Upon mastering the ability to channel my Kai into water, we commenced practical training. I hope for the forgiveness of all the creatures I have harmed. The initial fish disintegrated into fragments. I want to clarify that I did not intend to. I was equally taken aback. You attempt to close a wound on a fish, and unexpectedly, its head moves towards yours. I had a noticeable bump on my forehead for a week, which provided some entertainment for those around me. The local creatures possess robust bones and overall strong physiques, reflecting the nature of this bending world. It has been revealed that Yugoda consistently administers this type of test to demonstrate that negligence can have serious consequences. I initially believed that healing was a complex process, but I realize now that I was mistaken. Merely directing Kai into water and waving your hand over the wound is insufficient. Initially, it is essential to align your energy with that of the patient before introducing your Kai. Each individual possesses their unique energy, and to promote healing rather than causing harm, it is essential to intuitively calibrate your energy. That is what occurred with my initial subject. I directed my energy towards it, which was fundamentally antagonistic to the fish. Faced with no alternative, it engaged with the fish's energy, culminating in a significant explosion. Subsequently, it is essential to program the attuned Kai for the purpose of healing. Novice healers articulate phrases related to healing or utilize brief mantras to enhance their concentration. External injuries are more straightforward to manage as they are visible, allowing for direct observation of the healing process. One simply needs to have confidence in the closure. In cases of internal injuries, water that is properly attuned and programmed with Kai will seek out abnormalities within the body. However, this process requires significantly more energy. After a year of practice, I was able to heal ordinary injuries independently, yet this represents only the beginning of my journey. Numerous diseases remain without a cure, yet I believe the appropriate approach has yet to be discovered. My objective is to achieve mastery in healing bending, capable of curing even the terminally ill, halting the aging process, or at the very least, extending life. On an uncommon evening when my parents were out late, I took the responsibility of putting Yui to bed. We engaged in a discussion that was inevitable at some point. "Brother, why do I feel so different from my peers?" my little sister inquired, wrapped snugly in a blanket. Please refrain from attempting to make light of the situation. I happened to overhear a conversation between Mom and Dad regarding my arrival into this world. I anticipated that this conversation would occur at a later time, I stated. My younger sister is maturing at an accelerated pace. It seems appropriate to disclose certain information. You entered this world in a fragile state, so fragile that survival seemed impossible without an extraordinary intervention. In a moment of urgency, I imparted a portion of my Kai to you. You may recall the feelings that provided you with solace. So it wasn't merely my imagination? She inquired, raising her voice significantly. I initially believed it was merely a figment of my imagination. However, I am left questioning why I am unable to perceive your emotions as I once did during our first year. I believed that continuously shielding you would impede your own growth, I clarified. I have learned to manage that channel effectively. Please listen. I opened the spiritual channel and conveyed feelings of love and care. Do you sense it now? I have always been by your side, I remarked, gazing at her with warmth. I appreciate your sentiments as well, brother, she replied, her cheeks tinged with color. Could you please teach me how to do that as well? She inquired with enthusiasm. Certainly, I will, but I request that you keep this confidential. Let us maintain the discretion of this connection, I stated with a more serious tone. I consider myself intelligent, as I recognize your intelligence as well, Yui stated, nodding in agreement. I appreciate your clarification. Thank you for sharing this with me, brother. Something along those lines, I remarked with a smile. It is now time to retire for the evening. Wishing you a restful night. Wishing you a restful night, Yui said softly. The transition to the intermediate level of waterbending occurred seamlessly, even in the absence of my direct engagement. During underwater training, which enhanced its effectiveness, a noticeable wave of power unexpectedly emanated from me. The rapid expansion resulted in the freezing of the already cold water. This took place approximately 2 weeks following my 7th birthday. At that stage, my physical attributes had attained their optimal condition for my body. I was capable of participating in hand-to-hand combat with seasoned hunters who supplied meat for the entire tribe in the tundra. I look forward to considering the potential I will have by the time I reach 20. The sources, once perceived as ethereal, now appeared to be taking on a more tangible form. The energy circulating within me has attained a significantly elevated state. My sensitivity to water has increased from 10 meters to a full 50 meters. I have started to detect potential underground water sources located beneath the city. During the transition to the new rank, I experienced water in a profoundly different way for just a few seconds. From a distance, I sensed the circulation of blood in living individuals, their heartbeats resonating, and in the atmosphere, I perceived water particles coalescing into clouds. It resembled a moment of profound understanding, as though the element had imparted its knowledge to me. Subsequently, I dedicated 30 minutes attempting to regain that elevated state of awareness, but was unsuccessful. It seemed as though I had been presented with an opportunity that I urgently sought, only to be met with the response, "Put in more effort. Perhaps one day you will attain it." Impressive, I remarked instinctively as I manipulated a cubic meter of water that conformed to any shape I envisioned with the slightest intention. The water had integrated itself into my very being. It appears that Van Shitong's assertion holds true. Upon progressing to a new rank, we gain the chance to obtain an additional element. This became evident when the feeling of completeness that had accompanied me throughout my entire conscious existence dissipated. A new sensation emerged, characterized by a distinct emptiness that I felt compelled to address. I must identify a method to access the spirit world promptly in order to ascertain the additional benefits I have acquired from this new level. In subsequent engagements with waterbenders, my performance consistently remained high. I successfully achieved a draw against the elder waterbending masters. It is important to highlight that my heightened water sensitivity enables me to discern the components of an attack as it is being formulated. The water seems to communicate with me within a specific range regarding its intended use. During my practice, I uncovered the capability to compress water. Indeed, I was capable of this previously, but not to the extent that I am now. I successfully compressed several dozen tons of water, my current limit, into a few cubic centimeters, although maintaining it in that state proved to be even more challenging. During my initial experience of losing control, I propelled it high into the air. Moments later, an explosion erupted in the sky, causing a slight tremor throughout the city. I created a significant concern and felt it necessary to admit my actions. Otherwise, there was a risk they might perceive it as an attack and mobilize the entire team. I received a reprimand and am now permitted to practice bending only at a distance from the city. I enhanced this skill by the end of the week. The outcome was a method capable of competing with contemporary explosives even in the 21st century. The power of the bomb varies based on the compression of the water. For clarity, I designated them as Bomb 1, Bomb 2, and Bomb 3. Bomb 1 has a blast radius of approximately 100 meters, whereas Bomb 3 reaches a full kilometer. I have observed a comparable ability in Avatar Aang during his climactic confrontation with Fire Lord Ozai. A new defensive technique has developed from this ability. By compressing water into a thin, transparent film, I am able to envelop my entire body with it, resembling a second skin. However, I would refer to this skill as a transformative experience. This film offers significantly greater strength than the protective capabilities of an earthbending shield. In order to conduct the test, it was necessary to engage all the experts. To effectively demonstrate its efficacy, I opted to implement modifications. Initially, one master would launch an attack, and should the defense endure the impact, we would introduce an additional master. The outcome was remarkable. The assaults from all the masters only drained my resources. I did not incur any injuries. I am currently focused on ensuring that I maintain a consistent layer of the film on my person at all times. This precaution could potentially be life-saving in the future. Following the demonstration of my expertise, there was a noticeable change in people's perceptions of me. Individuals I encountered in the city took the initiative to greet me, and children regarded me with admiration. At gatherings, certain individuals aligned themselves with my perspective, and it is anticipated that more will join my cause in the near future. I have started to overlook the significant influence that strength. Kyoshi Island, with limited military forces and resources, maintains its independence primarily due to the formidable presence of Avatar Kyoshi. Bumi, possessing significant authority within his city, encounters no opposition from the Dai Li due to his status as one of the most formidable, if not the most formidable, earthbenders. Additionally, numerous other instances exist that illustrate this point. As I approached the spirit oasis, I sensed a convergence between the human realm and the spirit world. This serves as a significant portal linking both realms. Although it is presently closed, I could perceive remnants of the spirit world. I am going to the oasis to engage in discussions with a few spirits and to attempt to access the spirit world. Indeed, the portals are currently closed. However, it remains a worthwhile endeavor to make an attempt. As I traversed the path, I reached the oasis, where white and black koi carp gracefully swam. As I approached and maintained my observation, I became unaware that I had entered a trance-like state, during which the movements of the spirits took on a distinct harmony. Regaining my focus, I promptly seated myself on the grass and commenced a thorough analysis of the information the spirits had communicated to me in an extraordinary manner. As it turns out, Tui and La understand both human speech and the thought speech of spirits perfectly, but they see no need to communicate in such ways. No, they engage in more sophisticated communication. This dance was executed to enhance the flow of information to me. Tui and La are unable to recall the moment of their initial appearance. From the moment this world was created, they also emerged. As long as the oceans and the moon exist, they will endure eternally. They inhabit this space for enhanced comfort. In the human realm, the moon and oceans are more accessible to them than in the spirit world. They requested a few considerations. To minimize disturbances and, to the best of my capability, to ensure these incarnations remain safe. In the realm of humanity, they are entirely exposed. Their presence at full capacity would likely result in significant catastrophic events, including floods and various oceanic disasters. The waters would be so turbulent that sailing would become unfeasible. While this process will not occur instantaneously, the prolonged presence here will increasingly distort the world. Organizing all the information, I allowed myself to breathe a sigh of relief. The spirits revealed themselves to be rather tranquil. However, I do wish they would refrain from imposing knowledge upon me, as it would be invaluable. In return for possible assistance in maintaining their untroubled existence, they enhanced my comprehension of the water element. The challenge lay not in the information itself, but in their recollections of how they perceive water. Although their thought processes are distinctly non-human, I was able to understand some aspects of it. After organizing my thoughts, I was on the verge of attempting to enter the spirit world from this location when I almost committed a significant error. If I were to remain in the spirit world for an extended period or become trapped there, my family would be extremely concerned, particularly little Yui. They may even assume I am no longer alive. It is essential to acknowledge that I am no longer an isolated individual. I have family and friends who sincerely care about my well-being. However, they will not permit me to act without caution. After careful consideration, I chose to leave a note in my room, attributing the circumstances to benevolent forces that would guide me in enhancing my ability to manipulate water. It may not be the strongest justification, but it was the only option I could think of. Ultimately, I emphasized that these individuals were close friends of Tui and La, alleviating any concerns. I respectfully request the guidance of the spirits of the moon and ocean to act as my shield for a time. They will not conduct an interrogation, as you have not engaged in any prior communication with them. Access to this area is restricted solely to the chief's family. I trust they will minimize any disturbances to the fish, as I have committed to reducing our impact on them. I recognize that this is for our collective future. The more I strengthen myself, the greater the benefits will be for everyone, I affirmed as I made my way from the palace to the oasis. Uncertain about the next steps, I chose to focus on aligning myself with the energy of the spirit world. My lack of attention may ultimately lead to serious consequences in the future. Who anticipated that it would be successful on the initial attempt? As expected, I found myself between worlds, fully in my body, which means I have all of my bending skills with me. Which is a wonderful thing. I ended up to a pillar of light that separated the spirit and human realms. I need to start channeling my Kai in order to deepen my connection with spirit energy. Breaking through a closed portal will be difficult, if not impossible. I moved closer to the light wall, trying to figure out where it was weakest. The wall seems monolithic, with no way around it. I took a big breath, sprinted, and jumped into the pillar of light. As soon as my body reached the threshold, I had a déjà vu. How long has it been since my body lost awareness due to pain? It appears that the last time was when I was still a spirit and losing my shape. The last thing I felt was my body crashing with a snowdrift. Year 89 following the Air Nomad Genocide. Southern Water Tribe. A brother and sister played near a small, rundown village surrounded by limitless white fields. Despite the challenges their tribe had faced, they maintained their cheerful attitude. Katara, that is not fair. Your waterbending shouldn't change direction mid-flight, the 5-year-old Sokka said angrily at his younger sister, plucking snow out of his ear. But I didn't do anything, it just happens that way. Katara, who was 4 years old, retorted, equally upset. She had no idea why her waterbending had a mind of its own. At that point, an unusual flash of light appeared nearby, temporarily blinding them. Sokka, did you see that, too? The girl inquired, rubbing her eyes. Let's go check it out. It's just over the hill. Come on, let's investigate, she pushed, already moving in that direction. Katara, please wait. What if it was the Fire Nation? We should get Mom first, Sokka protested, but realizing that his efforts were ineffective, he followed her, curiosity getting the best of him. You are so foolish, Katara asserted firmly, even staring at her brother with a condescending air, as if to say, I remember, but you obviously don't. Sokka could only roll his eyes at her actions. As they approached, they noticed a person protruding out of a snowdrift, upside down. They looked at each other and grabbed a leg to help pull the body out. Once the entire body was free of snow, they noticed a boy with long white hair dressed in traditional Blue Water Tribe clothes. See, he's from our tribe too. Katara spoke proudly. You have never seen him in our tribe. Perhaps he is a spy disguised to infiltrate, Sokka whispered carefully. But why send such an obvious spy? I've never seen white hair before. Is he even a boy? Katara checked Sokka's respiration as he played detective. In some ways, she was more focused than her older brother. She noticed his face, which showed no signs of injury. Her cheeks flushed. She had never seen such a lovely boy before. She ran her hand through his hair and amazed at how smooth it was. She blushed even more as she quickly removed her hand. "Let's take him home so Mom can examine him," she eventually remarked. "You've already made up your mind, haven't you?" Sokka muttered resignedly, grasping the white-haired boy's legs. "Don't be difficult, he might catch a cold," pleaded the panting girl, as she helped her brother bring the stranger back to their tribe. Every day brings new experiences, both happy and terrible. After colliding with the barrier to the spirit realm, I didn't expect to wake up on an improvised bed consisting of various animal furs. They formed an ethereal softness, and I made a mental note to ask my gracious hosts what kind of animals possessed such delicate fur. While checking my body for damage, I discovered that my Kai sources were particularly slow. The chi flowing into them appeared to be revitalizing the sources rather than replenishing my reserves. At the point of impact with the barrier, I felt my considerable bending reserves evaporate in seconds. Following the jolt, I hurried in the location where I sensed human energy. Now I understand why I couldn't pass through the barrier. If I were a ghost, it would have let me in with ease, but I would not have been able to return to the human world. The barrier stops spirits from accessing the human world and vice versa. An ingenious safeguard. The next thing I realized was that my spirit and body were no longer separate entities. They had become one inseparable totality. This duality perplexed the barrier, and I could feel its defenses flex under my pressure. With a little more force, I might have burst through. However, in my case, a bit more would necessitate the power of a higher spirit, and without the finances to attain that rank in the spirit realm, it's a long road ahead. Rummaging through my memories from my previous life, I remembered everything about the Avatar. The solstices were mentioned. In the Avatar world, between the winter and summer solstices, the connection between the human and spirit worlds fades. This should theoretically allow me to enter with the power of a mid-level spirit. I'll need to seek competent individuals for specific dates. It's one of my best possibilities. I decided to open my eyes to see where I was. Even this seemingly simple action requires significant effort. After all, I'd never completely depleted both of my Kai sources before, and as I'd expected, even lifting my eyelids felt like a challenge. It took many minutes to channel life energy through my body before I was able to move. My eyes caught sight of an igloo, a traditional water tribal abode. Despite its modest size, it was comfortable. Sitting up slightly, I noticed a tiny pot cooking with something approximating fish stew and unusual seasonings. As soon as the aromatic perfume struck my nose, I felt insatiable hunger, and my stomach grumbled loudly, as if pleading for food. I wondered how long I had slept. At that point, the children who would one day shape the world's destiny, or at least contribute to it, entered the igloo. They were clearly meant to be the main characters here. Sokka and Katara were simple to recognize because they were identical to their television representations. Katara, a cute girl, was drowning in a blue fur coat that was several sizes too large for her. With her infantile chubbiness, she ranked at the top of my own adorability scale, U level, which says a lot. Sokka followed her, carrying a bucket of water and wearing his typical careless expression, even as a toddler. The last person to enter the igloo was an earlier version of Katara. To authenticate her identification, I compared young Katara to her mature self, noting several discrepancies. Kanna, Sokka and Katara's grandmother, appeared differently in the animated series than she did here. There were some parallels, but that was where it ended. What startled me? This woman, I couldn't call her a girl, had a wonderfully graceful shape that even her heavy winter attire couldn't conceal. Her large chest was at least a size C, and her fur coat accentuated her round hips. All of this was supplemented with a face matching Katara's, albeit with a less round head shape. Hakoda was extremely fortunate to acquire such a gift. He must have been kissed by fate itself. She seemed to be between 21 or 22 years old. Girls in the water tribe marry at 16, and because Sokka appeared to be 5 years old, Kanna was significantly younger here than in the anime. As my gaze meandered over Kanna's stunning features, my mind rushed to analyze and connect the dots. Kanna was too young here. I wouldn't have granted her more than 20 years. This was already a significant divergence from the canon. Next, the portal had sent me to the South Pole, which made sense. The South and North Poles each include portals to the spirit world. There's also the Foggy Swamp, but as I tried to leave the area between worlds, I wanted to get to the human realm. I had not even considered where I would end up. Of course, it would have been lovely to be near the spirit oasis, but seeing the series' key characters, particularly their young mother, was even better. My mind are straying. Kana saw I was awake right then. I hoped I wasn't staring too plainly. Are you all right? Kana inquired worriedly. My children discovered you unconscious near our tribe. My name is Kana, and these are my sons Sokka and daughter Katara. Nothing serious, just a little weak, but I believe it will pass in a day or two. Thank you for your concern, I responded graciously. My name is Naruto, and I'm from the Northern Water Tribe. Don't be overly formal with him, Mom. He appears quite suspicious, Sokka remarked with a warrior-like stance, glaring at me angrily. And how can you show you're from the Northern Water Tribe? We had not seen anyone from there in a long time. Sokka, don't be rude to someone you just met, Kana murmured, and Sokka's expression softened significantly. My apologies for his statements. Outsiders aren't normally particularly pleasant to us, she added with a tight smile, a covert reference to the Fire Nation, who continued to visit with terrible intentions. Their mother was not naive. When my sight had ceased wandering over her body, I glanced into her eyes. Despite her genuine politeness to me, there was a sense of caution, and her hand in her coat pocket appeared to be holding something. Katara, meanwhile, had been looking attentively behind her mother's back. Whenever I stared at her, she swiftly hid. Many people were bashful as youngsters. Let's chat after we eat. Kana replied, you must be hungry after 2 days in bed. When she mentioned food, my stomach gave out a louder growl than I expected. It brightened the mood. Katara laughed. Kana smiled as she served the lunch, and Sokka softened his warrior stance significantly. At the start of the lunch, a minor issue developed. Moving my arm was difficult, and by the time the spoon got to my lips, it had lost 90% of its contents. Kana had to help me eat. I felt a little ashamed, especially when the kids started watching me, but my empty stomach had other plans. I felt very humiliated when I ate more than everyone else combined. This food could have been intended to last them many days, and I ate like there was no tomorrow. Once I regain my strength, I will repay them tenfold. After the great meal, we had a discourse in which we each shared something about ourselves. As the conversation continued, the ice melted. For instance, only someone who has spent their whole life with the Water Tribe would be familiar with all of its traditions and practices. By evening, near the end of our conversation, we found Sokka had fallen asleep, and Katara, who had been sitting between me and Kana, had her head on my lap, gripping my waist tightly. Kana stared at us for several minutes, as if recalling something from the past. I believe I understand why. She used to fall asleep like that on Hakoda's lap, Kana confirmed. Her story revealed that the Fire Nation saw no need to abandon the able-bodied inhabitants. Almost all of the men were imprisoned or executed on the spot for their resistance. Adult men were still with them 2 years ago, but the relationship did not last. A month later, 2 Fire Nation ships arrived, demanding they hand up a waterbender, stating they were aware one was present. They repeat this every several years to assure the Southern Water Tribe's extinction. If there is no waterbender, they pick a random person to incite the tribe into attacking. At the time, they encountered arrogant soldiers who wanted to capture half of the able-bodied guys. Knowing that the Fire Nation warriors might not stop there, the villagers resolved to fight back. They prevailed, but at a tremendous cost. Only a few soldiers survived, and they were permanently damaged. There were too many firebenders among the assailants, and it was already a marvel that the basic hunters, who outnumbered their opponents by a little margin, won. That's what it means to fight for your house and family. As a result, the tribe was reduced to women, children, seniors, individuals with disabilities, and a few youths. Sokka and Katara hadn't even had the opportunity to get to know their father properly. They were just 3 or 2 years old at the time. It's incredibly sad. I hope to figure out how to use the portal. This tribe requires assistance. They would not survive another Fire Nation attack. This world has differences, and that is a fact. I need to be prepared for unforeseen turns. As for myself, I talked about my time in the North Pole without focusing too heavily on any one topic. I believe there will be time to get to know each other better. I decided not to discuss my unusual coming here because I couldn't divulge my true nature or blame everything on Tui and La, even though I contemplated it. For the next 2 days, I had to stay in bed. My vulnerability faded too slowly. Only at the end of the second day was I able to eat and move independently. I seem to have ruined someone's mood. Katara seems disappointed. On the second day, while Kana was busy, Katara offered to feed me, happy to care for me. We were considerably closer throughout this time. I must say that after only 2 days, I began to feel like a member of their family, or near to it. Katara was intrigued by the new face and wanted to learn about life in my tribe. When she stopped being shy, she became even more curious than you. Sokka was usually there, purportedly protecting his sister, but Katara and I could tell he was just as interested in my stories. Inventing stories for youngsters comes naturally to someone who has read a whole library of Water Tribe tales, where the authors spend at least half of the book recalling their adventures. That was how we kept the kids amused for 2 days indoors. This week, I was able to be a builder, architect, hunter, designer, and even a theater performance all in one. I had to learn these professions on the fly, and each time, I was happy for my love of reading or my voracious hunger for information, which drove me to read every book in the library. Suddenly, all the knowledge you thought would never be useful turns out to be in high demand. Oh, how I desire to visit Wan Shi Tong's library soon. The grave circumstances of the entire tribe motivated me to become a professional jack of all trades. By the 3rd day, the energy sources were completely operational and busily replenishing the reservoir, which didn't take long given their proximity to the spirit world gateway. The physical weakness vanished once Kai was activated. By lunchtime on the 3rd day, I was at my peak strength. I decided to check around the entire village and headed outside for some fresh air. My presence caught everyone's attention. Stories about how I had magically appeared in their clan had already spread around the town. It was small enough that every rumor or bit of news could spread quickly and last a long time, yet hearing something was not the same as witnessing it for yourself. As I moved around the tribe, I met nearly all of its members, and with each encounter, my mood dipped. The grown-ups here had a lifeless stare and appeared weary, both mentally and physically. The majority of them had lost someone close to them, a family member or relative, and the loss of so many loved ones had a negative impact on their well-being. This was especially true because the tribal member in charge of the majority of the meat hunting, settlement guarding, and other physically hard activities was absent. The tribe was forced to rely heavily on fish for sustenance. They were occasionally able to hunt meat, but only when herbivore wandered from its herd or a predator was elderly or injured. Finding harmless creatures was challenging because most were naturally camouflaged. They wouldn't live close to humans, therefore hunting required going far away from the tribe, increasing the chance of encountering predators. A couple adolescents had gone hunting despite warnings and were never seen again. Only the youngsters seemed pleased with their lives, but even they were influenced by the behavior of the adult people. Looking at the tribe's inhabitants, it felt like a cross between a nursing home, a hospital for injured troops, and a kindergarten with caregivers. A swarm of children surrounded me, unwilling to let me pass until their curiosity was fulfilled. There were questions, pleas to play, and a torrent of youthful emotions that made my head spin. Katara, who had been by my side the entire time, looked at the other children with envy. She was used to having all of my focus on her. A little possession. The plight of the population seems to resemble the community itself. The igloo, which appeared to be handcrafted, was slightly crooked, and it was the chief's residence, where I'd spent the previous 2 days. Everything else was much worse. The remainder of the tribe lived in tent-like constructions constructed from whatever materials they could scavenge. I've even seen Fire Nation banners used as awnings. That's when I realized that while aiding these people would cost me nothing, it would provide them with new desire to move forward. I needed to shake things up somehow. With these thoughts, I proceeded to the elder's house to ask her counsel on my plans. Kanna, the Southern Water Tribe's oldest citizen, was well known to everyone. "Elder Kanna, are you free?" I inquired at the door to her tent. "I need to speak with you. Come inside," a feeble voice responded from within. "I've just finished making herbal tea, and I prepared it especially for you. Though I was never gifted with waterbending, I learned from healers in the Northern Water Tribe how to make such drinks to aid recovery." As I walked in, the aroma of various plants tickled my nostrils. It appeared to be a natural substance, which was unusual at the time. Come in, come in. I made this tea just for you." My speech was steady and calm, the kind you want to listen to from someone who's lived a full life. "They say you're from the Northern Water Tribe. How are things there?" "Thank you for all of your help," I responded, bowing in appreciation. "Kya told me you helped nurse me back to health while I was unconscious. Things are fine at home. The Fire Nation hasn't attacked us in many years. Do you happen to know Yugoda? She's my healing mentor. Once, she told me about her old friend Kanna, who moved to the South Pole. So she's still alive. That's good. She's always wanted to help people with their injuries, and it appears she's accomplished that goal." Her expression brightened at the news. "But what brings you here?" she inquired, passing me a cup of tea. "I'd like to help your tribe. As a waterbender, I can do a lot, and I hope you'll guide my efforts in the most useful direction. After all, you know best what the tribe needs." "It's easier to list what we don't need, young man," she replied, shaking her head. "I thank you in advance on behalf of the entire tribe, and I hope you won't overdo it. You've only just recovered." After our talk, in which she gave me permission to proceed with all of my ideas, I began to consider where I should begin. I imagined I'd start by creating new dwellings. As I had discovered, these tents could not keep warm for long. Without hesitation, I went looking for suitable site to build additional dwellings. It would be wrong to relocate people without first ensuring that the construction will be completed swiftly. It would be easier to build all of the houses first and then assist them in moving their possessions. After selecting a location, I began gathering water from the ocean and compressing it into the forms I need. Tui and Law's enlightenment boosted my skills, allowing me to manage even larger volumes of water, making building the dwellings quite simple. The majority of my time was spent recalling information from books about how to do everything right. The population was not particularly huge, so 20 residences would suffice, even for future families. Building buildings with waterbending had numerous benefits, including increased control and the freedom to design my dream residences. Each house turned out to be unique, with its own distinct style. The children would undoubtedly adore these. In case of an emergency, I created big basements to each home that could be used as both shelter and storage for perishable food. I was amazed by my own quickness. I finished all of the houses right as the sun was setting. Tomorrow morning, I could inform the occupants that they were moving into their new homes. It's worth noting the kids' funny reactions to waterbending. They had never seen it before, only adults had experienced it personally. For about 15 minutes, they gaped in awe, mouths open, as they witnessed my water manipulations during construction. Afterward, their queries and exclamations kept me busy throughout the construction process. Every youngster that day was inspired to become a waterbender, but it appeared that only Katara has the ability. To avoid disappointing them, I began narrating stories of bold fishermen, cooks, and other jobs that could be even more exciting than becoming a waterbender. I eloquently detailed how they could catch enough fish to feed the entire tribe and make their mothers proud. Yes, it may be considered manipulation, but it was preferable to divert their attention so they wouldn't be disappointed later if they didn't turn out to be benders. The next day, each tribe member performed a reality acceptance ritual. When Kana instructed them to pack their belongings for the move, some assumed she had accepted the children's story about the super cool waterbender boy they had seen the day before. However, a few daring people opted to visit the new town first, becoming the first pilgrims to complete the rite of staring in wonder for several minutes, rubbing their eyes, and touching one of the dwellings. Still unclear what was going on, the villagers gathered their goods, which I then transferred to the new settlement using ice platforms. That day, after assisting with the relocation, I considered protecting the village and keeping it covert. From the ocean side, where the hamlet was clearly visible, I built little hills to block the view of Fire Nation ships. I did the same on the other two sides so that anyone approaching the old village would not see the new town. It was difficult to make the hills appear natural, so I spent an hour molding them to match Mother Nature's effort. I tightly compressed the ice and ringed the entire settlement with 2-meter-high walls, as well as watchtowers to provide a clear view of the surroundings. That same day, I used my healing powers to evaluate all of the residents. Everyone was sick or injured, with the exception of the children, who were virtually fully well. There were numerous old injuries and badly healed bones, indicating that a healing bender had not been present in a long time. This was also the first time I'd faced with serious injuries. Some folks required emergency care, and it was frightening to think I had done something wrong. There were no other healers present as backup, but I had strong motivation to do everything correctly. A pair of innocent, trusting eyes watching me, certain I would heal their mother. When you do something yourself and help others in the process, you feel a sense of accomplishment, especially when you watch people's moods lift as a result of your efforts. By the end of the day, I was exhausted and depleted from the therapeutic sessions, but it was worthwhile. Later, the daughter of the woman I'd treated approached me and offered me her only toy, saying I earned it. You should have seen her expression. She didn't want to part with it, but it would have been impolite to refuse. I had to hold back a smile. After all, a child was handing over possibly her most prized thing. I couldn't take her battle any longer and told her I didn't need the toy, but I did have an important mission for her: to look after her mother and make sure she didn't overexert herself for the next 10 days. The girl nodded sincerely and sternly as I said, "On the 6th day, Full of vigor, I pushed farther into the tundra. The settlement lacked meat stockpiles, and clothes was also in limited supply. This matter required immediate treatment. It was easy for a waterbending master to defeat any monster in these places. The majority of the time was spent finding them. That day, I brought back a complete pack of wolves that had been hiding near the new settlement, as well as a polar leopard and 3 yaks. This was enough meat to last the tribe at least another 2 weeks. The hides might be utilized to create new garments for everyone. Over the next 2 days, I continued to hunt dangerous animals near the village while building the dwellings. I also constructed a secret refuge in one of the hills so that if enemies discovered the village, they could hide in these rooms. With more spare time, I quickly turned to the kids. I'd been so concentrated on making things better that I'd forgotten my regular audience. Whenever I was near or within the tribe, the children followed me like a shadow. They didn't bother me since they saw I was working. Instead, they watched. Such unchildlike patience merited a prize, which I gladly gave. Over the course of 2 days, I gave them whole performances using animated water. As the stories progressed, the water took on many forms, including individuals from my stories and full 3-dimensional environments that brought the scenarios to life. By now, I'd gotten used to falling asleep to Katara's enthusiastic talk as she told her mother about the day's events, Soka's pleased grunts as he played with the boomerang I'd built him, and Kya's thankful glances as she saw her children happy. After finishing all of my intended chores, I chose to focus on returning to the North Pole. I was beginning to miss my parents and little sister. That night, I returned to the area where I had originally arrived and proceeded to explore the enigmatic region between worlds. Once there, I sought to hear echoes of other places related to the human sphere. After some time, I discovered 2 such resources. One was almost identical to the energy of the South Pole, controlled by waterbending, most likely my tribe's area. The other was far weaker, suggesting something formed by someone pushing their way through the barrier from both sides. Clearly, this was the Valley of Forgetfulness, a location frequented by the Mother of Faces. She assists individuals who wander there by granting them the ability to change their faces. She occasionally removes their memories at their desire. I believe she caused the break in the shielding. An ancient spirit like her is undoubtedly capable of doing so. Avoid going there unless absolutely required. Who knows how she varies from her role in the series? There, she never hurt anyone, but here, I've already seen changes from what I saw on film. I have an idea for getting to my objective without exerting too much effort, but there's no need to act right now. Tomorrow, after properly saying farewell to the tribe, I'll try to return home. The following day, every member of the tribe gathered to see me off. Many of the youngsters were in tears, and none of them wanted me to leave. Katara clung to me when I notified Kai's folks of my departure in the early morning. I had to carry her in my arms. Otherwise, she threatened to grab my leg and walk that way. Over the next few hours, I heard Katara's emotional pleadings for me to stay, her bartering pledges to be extremely submissive, and even threats to ignore me. While all of this was going on, I found myself thinking, just stay a little longer, but I had to use a lot of discipline to keep those thoughts at bay. If I stayed a little longer, it could go on endlessly. Each tantrum had to be calmed, and I firmly promised her that I'd return soon. Kai appeared even more attractive and youthful during these days. When there is a man, well, a boy, who offers a sense of security, and the children are fed, clothed, and happy, she is comfortable with her existence. Throughout our time together, I was able to examine her personality. She was a composed and sensible young woman with a sense of diplomacy. When I couldn't answer some of her inquiries truthfully, she politely dismissed the awkward subject. She was also quite attentive, frequently sitting with the kids for so long that we forgot to eat. That's when she'd demonstrate her thoughtfulness by setting the table with ready-made meals. "Maybe you'll stay a few more days?" Kai inquired after our morning tea, while the youngsters remained asleep. "I'd love to, but I can't. My family is waiting for me there," I sighed. "You know, there's a good chance I'll return soon. If I can figure out the mechanism of travel, I'll be able to come here whenever I want." "Yes, but it's hard to believe you can travel from one point in the world to another," she responded, her logic weird. "You live with bending, mysterious animals, and spirits, yet some things still seem impossible to people here. Katara will miss you terribly. I don't think she'll let you go today," she told me. "Since you woke up, she's spent all of her time with you, even forgetting about me," she remarked with a note of envy. "I didn't mean to," I admitted hesitantly. "You've probably guessed Katara as a potential waterbender, right?" I asked seriously. "Yes," she said, clearly annoyed. Being born a waterbender in this tribe is considered a curse rather than a blessing. Sometimes I have nightmares about firebenders attacking the village and taking my girl, she remarked, shuddering. When I came closer and wrapped my arm around her, hoping to provide some comfort. It seems like since you arrived, those bad dreams haven't bothered me anymore, she said quietly, leaning in rather than backing away. Promise me you'll return soon, she urged, staring into my eyes. How could I not return when she looks at me so tenderly? Seeing her vulnerability, I could only nod. We remained in peaceful tranquility for another half-hour before being startled by the drowsy faces of Sokka and Katara. I will need to dedicate additional effort to studying healing, waterbending, and Kai. I am not inclined to part ways with Kai. From the moment I first encountered her, I was drawn to her. Initially, it was due to her remarkable physique and attractive features. As I became more acquainted with her, initial attraction evolved into a more intricate connection. In the near future, I aspire to be someone she can depend on. That evening, at the location of my initial arrival, I bid farewell to the individuals who had come to appreciate each moment of their existence. Being part of such a transformation was exceptionally fulfilling. Ultimately, an individual should engage in both destruction and creation. After gently wiping Katara's tears one final time and entrusting her to her mother, who also attempted to conceal her sorrow from me, I proceeded into that same area with a small polar rodent. What is the necessity of this? I would like to evaluate the feasibility of transporting living beings using this method. At this time, a minor creature that consumes the tribe's provisions will suffice. Upon arrival, I commenced the execution of my plan. This location appears to lack a conventional understanding of distance. It resembles the library of Wan Shi Tong, where one must navigate by harnessing their thoughts and Kai. As I progressed in a singular direction, I began to concentrate on the energy of the material realm, highlighting the enhanced presence of water Kai. As I progressed, I noticed a concerning depletion of my energy. I utilized it to protect the rodent, which began to deteriorate as soon as we commenced our movement in this area. The journey appeared to be depleting its vitality, as it seemed to lack sufficient energy of its own. After what I assessed to be several hundred meters, I started to sense my proximity to the intended location. Regaining my composure, I began to transition from this location. Upon opening my eyes following the transition, I beheld the spirit oasis. Upon observing my empty hands, I recognized that the previous rodent had transformed into a mummy-like figure and disintegrated into dust within my grasp. It was prudent that I did not bring someone with me immediately. If I had not maintained a substantial reserve of Kai, I could have experienced a similar outcome. It appears that during my initial attempt to access the spirit world, I navigated a precarious path. Without two sources of Kai, I would have arrived at the southern water tribe in a diminished state. Contemplating it elicits a strong sense of discomfort. It is important to acknowledge mistakes, but they should not define our actions moving forward. After acknowledging the spirits of the moon and ocean, who did not respond, I proceeded swiftly toward the chief's palace. As I approached, the individuals I encountered maintained their gaze upon me with a sense of disbelief. Perceiving a potential issue, I increased my speed, nearly transitioning into a light jog. Upon entering the living room, I encountered a palpable atmosphere, one that felt dense and almost tangible. The serious expressions of Arnook and June further contributed to the already uncomfortable atmosphere for me. However, Yui, with tears in her eyes, disrupted the atmosphere they had established by embracing me. Noticing the absence of the atmosphere, my parents simply shook their heads and participated in the embrace. Following the cordial reception, a significant discussion commenced. Son, your mother and I recognize your responsibility and maturity, but there are boundaries to consider, my father stated, with my mother affirming his words. I trust you understand the extent of our concern for you. Indeed, I comprehend, I responded. Regardless of my abilities as a waterbender, parents will consistently seek to safeguard their children for as long as they can. I have taken responsibility for creating this situation myself. Excellent. I trust you are now prepared to disclose at least a portion of your insights with us. It has been a long-standing suspicion that you may have been concealing certain information from us. However, we had anticipated that you would eventually disclose some of your insights. It is uncomfortable. I believed my parents had sufficient ideas of their own and would refrain from raising these questions once more. I need to inform them about the portals that link the two poles. To ensure I can continue to be unavailable for certain durations without interruption, it is essential that they are informed about my whereabouts and activities. The situation is quite complex. I need to develop a credible narrative regarding my understanding of the portals, spirits, and the interconnected elements that unify them. From a young age, I found that knowledge of various subjects would unexpectedly surface in my mind: real locations in our world, techniques of waterbending, and even certain historical events. I started with a sigh. This is how I became acquainted with portals to the spirit world, where dedicating just one day to practice your bending can produce results equivalent to weeks of training, thanks to the absorption of residual spirit energy. I became resolute in my pursuit of that destination. From the same knowledge, I acquired insights regarding portals to the spirit world. I possessed the capability to comprehend spirits. On that day, I engaged in a conversation with Tui and La, who assisted me in mastering waterbending. I mentioned that they requested minimal disturbance. I added, aiming to shift the conversation: "We had higher expectations for your judgment. Given the numerous risks involved, you still chose to venture into the unknown," my father remarked, his expression reflecting significant displeasure, if not outright anger, at my apparent recklessness. Regarding my insights into spirits and knowledge, their response was not particularly strong. They had already entertained similar notions. I proceeded to provide them with a more comprehensive account of the challenges I faced and the circumstances that led me to the Southern Water Tribe. Upon discussing the current situation of the Southern Water Tribe, my parents displayed a clear sense of anger. My father recalled how his father and his advisors faced the challenging decision to refrain from intervening in the Southern Tribe's conflict with the Fire Nation. Distributing their limited resources across two distant regions would threaten the very survival of the Water Nation. Upon discovering that I could travel back and forth without any complications, my father promptly approved my trips to visit our southern relatives. He advised me to exercise caution and to depart promptly should the situation escalate. He was not prepared to lose his son on the other side of the world. Our discussion concluded late in the evening. Yui had peacefully fallen asleep in my arms within an hour of my arrival. My parents informed me that she had been quite restless, even going so far as to search the entire city for my whereabouts. I caused her considerable concern, as I had never been away from her for such an extended period previously. I must consider a suitable approach to rectify the situation, but that can be deferred until tomorrow. At this moment, I am inclined to retire for the evening. The home environment was satisfactory. For several consecutive days, I focused on resting and enjoying quality time with Yui. In appreciation for her forgiveness, she requested that I begin instructing her in the art of waterbending. I refrained from informing her that I was already preparing to initiate her training shortly. Yui's proficiency in waterbending was remarkable, not as powerful as my own, but certainly significantly superior to that of typical waterbenders. While she had the capability to begin training independently, we opted to practice together to enhance our efficiency. This presented an excellent opportunity for her to engage in more time with me. Following our discussion regarding our spiritual connection, Yui, with my consent and under my direction, commenced her exploration of it. In the course of her research, she found that when her energy levels were diminished, she could draw from mine, provided I was within a reasonable proximity. This allowed her to train extensively, yet excessive use of bending remained detrimental. My Kai, possessing superior quality, would compromise her own if utilized for an extended period. In moderation, it would be advantageous for her, as her energy would slowly align with mine. The evolution of our connection was characterized by a gradual progression. Last week, when she was unable to locate me, Yui attempted to connect emotionally, but her efforts were hindered by the distance. However, it resulted in an unforeseen outcome. When we concentrated on the connection, we were able to communicate telepathically, highlighting words and sentences with emotion. This ensured our communication was equally effective as a standard conversation. A consideration arose. What if I were to share a portion of my energy with another individual? Could it transform an average individual into a bender? Would it activate their potential? In Yui's situation, numerous factors contributed significantly. We are closely related, our energy is quite similar, and she was an infant at the time of the event, which indicates her energy was adaptable. Significantly, all her ancestors hailed from the Water Tribe, whereas my Kai represents a blend of neutral and water elements. I am skeptical that sharing a portion of my Kai with a Fire Nation native would result in the awakening of waterbending abilities within them. It is important to evaluate the situation. I am prepared to forego waterbending if it enhances the capabilities of those in my vicinity. I could offer a portion of my energy to Kana. Ultimately, she gave birth to Katara, who possesses bending abilities, indicating that she is on the verge of realizing her potential. No irreversible consequences have arisen since Yui's birth. I refrained from sharing a significant part of myself. Had I done so, the situation would likely have deteriorated further. At that time, my Kai's sources were in the process of stabilizing. However, my actions extended the timeline by an additional year. I may have shared a portion of my waterbending ability, which required approximately a year to completely regain. At that time, my sources had not yet been activated. With a mid-level spirit rank and activated sources, the recovery process is expected to be significantly expedited. This is a valuable exchange. However, I must first activate my initial chakra to ensure I am not left vulnerable should I choose to proceed with this decision. I reviewed my itinerary for visiting the Southern Water Tribe with my parents. I have been requested to remain at home this month. However, beginning next month, I plan to visit the other pole several times each month, likely for a day or two each week. I could increase my frequency, but it is more prudent to restrict myself in order to allocate time for bending and my upcoming bloodbending experiments, which I plan to initiate next month. Today, I must complete all tasks, as I will be departing for the South Pole tomorrow. I should also ensure to bring some wildlife with me. In the future, I will decrease energy consumption to ensure protection for myself throughout the transition. This month has proven to be highly effective in enhancing my healing capabilities. During my time in the Southern Water Tribe, I conducted a thorough examination of each resident and observed minor ailments that, if not addressed, could potentially escalate into more significant health issues. In the Northern Tribe, individuals seek the assistance of healers primarily when experiencing significant discomfort. I believe that the residents in the North likely experience a comparable range of health issues as those in the South. At the healing huts, under the guidance of experienced healers, I demonstrated my capability to address severe injuries. This enhanced my reputation significantly. The concept of mass preventive healing emerged from my recognition of insufficient practice in this field. In the short time since I assumed the role of senior healer, we have only seen 3 individuals with serious injuries, an insufficient number for my professional development. I took the initiative to schedule a meeting to promptly address this issue. I chose to showcase my abilities, aware of the potential delays in the decision-making process. I identified individuals who appeared to have injuries or illnesses and sought their consent to conduct a diagnosis. As anticipated, each individual presented with conditions that resulted in discomfort. There were no urgent or life-threatening matters, allowing me to address them promptly. The impact was instantaneous. Everyone experienced a significant improvement in their well-being. I requested the attendees to proceed to the healing huts for additional treatment, as they expressed a desire for immediate healing after observing the results. The healers had not encountered such a demanding workload, even during the war. Each individual who was healed served as a testament to our capabilities, prompting residents to seek out opportunities to learn the art of healing. Even individuals from all walks of life sought to acquire first aid skills, as our expertise extended beyond the realm of waterbending. We needed to promptly expand the existing building to accommodate the increase in student enrollment. It was unprecedented for even a few male waterbenders to join. During the initial days, I encountered a variety of minor to moderate injuries and illnesses, which did not present a sufficient challenge. Upon careful consideration, I requested that fellow healers refer to me only the most severe cases or those that were beyond their capacity to treat. This month has proven to be exceptionally productive. This advancement in comprehending waterbending and Kai will be challenging to duplicate. The majority of severe illnesses ceased to pose a challenge, leaving only the genuinely enigmatic cases as difficult to resolve. I acquired a more profound comprehension of life energy. The integration into water now necessitated minimal effort, and the energy itself became increasingly adaptable. I found that the heart serves as the central organ for life energy. The heart serves as the central hub while the entire body engages with it. This indicates that the infusion of life energy into the blood may result in the attainment of desired longevity. The aging process of the body occurs as life energy reaches its peak and subsequently diminishes. However, if you can make incremental improvements to its quality or quantity consistently, you may significantly extend your lifespan. Through my engagement with bending and Kai, I have come to understand that life energy is more palpable. The lion turtle people predominantly utilized it prior to acquiring their bending abilities. Bending possesses a more ethereal quality. However, to utilize it effectively, a bender must channel it through their body's energy centers, as demonstrated when Aang took Ozai's bending abilities. Korra's situation is analogous. She retained the bending ability but was unable to utilize it. It resembles possessing a Wi-Fi router, bending, without the necessary driver on your laptop, body, to connect to the internet. While it may not be the most ideal analogy, it serves its purpose effectively. Upon progressing in my healing abilities, I sought to explore bloodbending. Hama reportedly practiced this technique during the full moon on rodents. However, its application is not confined to that specific time, as waterbending is simply more potent during those periods. Locating rodents proved to be straightforward, as they appear to flourish in various environments. I am uncertain about the duration of Hama's studies, but within a month, I was only able to perceive the blood faintly. Any form of control was not an option. This necessitates patience. However, there remains an opportunity to advance gradually. Managing my own blood is significantly more straightforward. I have initiated the development of a new technique referred to as bloody marionette, which may prove advantageous in situations where an individual like Tai Li renders my limbs numb. This technique involves the infusion of my blood with Kai for the purpose of control. The movements remain somewhat unsteady. However, with continued practice, I may be able to utilize it effectively in combat or for evasion purposes. I am interested in acquiring the skill to collect moisture through the process of draining plants. However, the vegetation in this area is limited. I will need to seek alternative learning opportunities or begin exploring the complexities of extracting water from the atmosphere, which appears to be a more challenging endeavor. The upcoming solstice is scheduled to occur in 4 months. I hope the time arrives quickly. I am keen to discover whether absorbing another spirit's essence will bestow upon me their element. This would create numerous opportunities. Water Tribe of the South Kana. It's been about a month since Naruto left us. In just 7 days, he became the leader of our small tribe. It looks like everyone has come to life because of what he did. Now, the elderly teach the kids and teens, and every day is full with happy activity. Thanks to his presence, I finally feel at ease. I hate to say that, but I never felt this type of support from Hakoda. I hope he comes back soon. Every day, Katara goes to the area where he first showed up, expecting to see him again. Sokka always goes with her, but he makes excuses each time. He doesn't want to accept that Naruto has gotten close to him yet. Katara is back again, perhaps requesting to take a walk outside the village, but she always runs to that area. Mom, Sokka and I want to stroll past the wall. Can we? She asks, making her finest begging expression, something she's gotten really good at since it worked so well on Naruto. Okay, but come back before the sun sets, I say. I can't stop her. She'd go regardless. I wonder where she gets her rebellious side. It's likely that I was a rebel when I was younger. The sun is almost gone, and the kids should be returning soon. I might as well go there myself. I haven't left the house all day. I hear happy voices outside as I put on my coat. I can see a crowd forming in the middle of the village when I look out. What's the party for? As I get closer, the throng moves aside to show Naruto carrying a happy Katara on one arm, her hands around his neck. He messes up Sokka's hair with his other hand. Sokka tries to be cool, but his lips keep curving up into a smile. I also smile. He is back, just like he said he would be, and my heart feels considerably lighter. I was able to get a lot done in the days running up to the solstice. Yui started to learn more difficult waterbending moves, but she still couldn't change the state of water. Even simple waterbending requires a lot of complicated procedures that even experts find hard to do perfectly. I'll be able to open the first chakra soon, which will improve all of my bending skills at once. Fear blocks this chakra, and to open it, you have to face your biggest fear and get over it. There are certain anxieties that I have, but they're more like worries than fears. I'm not sure what I fear most. It's probably something deep in my mind, where individuals often keep their worst memories without even realizing it. Things are going well at the South Pole, but people are worried that the Fire Nation soldiers may come again. They may have given up on the Southern Water Tribe, but when they look into why this outpost has been quiet for so long, they will definitely want to get back at the Southern invaders. I relied too much on the new village's camouflage when I last visited, but these people aren't stupid. They might start going through half of the tundra. As a last resort, we dug a 2-kilometer-long tunnel under the settlement and put up a temporary bunker in it. It can protect the people for up to 2 weeks, but we will need to restock supplies and clear the entrance of snow. Still, it's a lot better than just sitting around and waiting for the Fire Nation to show up. I'll be back by the time they're safe. We set up traps in the old village, which the Fire Nation will definitely check out thoroughly, to give people time to leave or to warn them of an attack. We also set up traps around the new village. Some will make enough noise to wake up even the most sleepy people, and the screams of trapped soldiers should be a clear sign to the villagers. We set up patrols to make sure that no wild animals set off the traps, which may make them less effective, after telling people to stay away from certain locations. Every time I went through the portals, I brought a rat with me. It worked. Now the rodent comes out of the southern tribe with me unhurt. But when I was testing the rodent, I forgot that they don't have their own bending and have very little Kai. A strong bender could make this trip on their own, it turns out. I can keep a non-bender or weak gifted person safe when we travel together by using my energy. Even though the rodent was little, it still took me half my effort. What if I don't have enough reserves to safeguard a person? I need to locate someone I can get rid of, but for now, I'll try moving a horned animal instead. That will probably be harder. I'm also getting better at bloodbending. I was able to transfer the blood of one rat, but its movements are strange, and even its relatives stay away from it. It's still progress, though. I now know that the key is to understand how blood circulates and interacts with Kai. At first, I thought it was as easy as moving blood to a hand, but it's really about how the body reacts when blood and Kai meet in certain places. The hardest part is realizing that my blood and Kai are the same thing. It's like raising my hand without thinking. My body tries to sync up blood flow with Kai, which is how I came up with the bloody marionette technique. I assumed it would be easier to control my blood. What did Aemon do using bloodbending to stop Korra from using her powers? How could he dominate a throng without moving? Because he knew how to control blood and, if not all of Kai, at least a big part of it. That's what I need to work toward. The solstice is coming up, and I have about 18 hours to identify the dark spirits I need, deal with them, and exit the spirit world. I have no desire to wait for the next solstice. I need to choose which part to use. I want to locate a spirit of time or space, but even if they do exist, they're hard to find and even harder to grow. People don't have any methods or scrolls for these elements. It might not even be possible to get a new element. I have to choose from the three main elements: earth, fire, or air. Waterbending is flexible. It can be used for protection, quick attacks, and moving about. The only bad thing is that I have to carry water with me until I learn how to get it from my surroundings. It would also be helpful to learn how to bend air, but doing so now might draw unwanted attention. I'm a strong bender, but I couldn't stand up to a whole country. It's too dangerous for me and the people I care about. That leaves earthbending and firebending, both enticing. Earthbending could lead to metalbending and lava bending, and it's easy to find tutors. But I need something special that firebending has. Firebenders engage closely with their Kai. They program their Kai and seem to add some of it along the way to make fire. Firebenders make their own element, but they need fuel to do so. In a vacuum, fire is worthless, but such situations are unusual. Lightning bending is another example. In the show, it happens by messing up the flow of Kai and adding fire energy. Another motivation to select firebending is the way Avatar Korra used it in her story when she lost her memory after being attacked by a bad spirit. Energy reading lets you look at a person's physical and spiritual health, including their energy pathways and mind. It can't fix things, but it can help find problems. I think this method has to do with changing Kai. I guess I'll have to learn by doing or by sneaking into the Fire Sage's lessons. Wan Shi Tong is a spirit of knowledge, thus he might know things too. He probably knows where fresh discoveries happen and sends his helpers there. I sat on the grass beside the spirit oasis and watched the sun rise. I could feel the tension in the air as the line between worlds become thinner. I went through the portal when the sun was fully up. The barrier seemed less solid and thinner, although I don't know how the solstice works. I got ready by gathering my strength and covering myself with compressed water. Then I went to the barrier. My protecting energy ran out rapidly, but I kept going one step at a time. My energy stores quickly filled up again in the spirit world. I was in a valley with sharp rocks all around me that had been hit by lightning. I've been too concentrated on the offensive side of waterbending. Luckily, I was able to make a flying water platform because I was good at it. The spirit world is huge, and flying is faster. I'm pleased I brought containers for water. I felt only lightning energy as I flew in a random path. Lightning is strong, yet it won't let me bend fire. I have to go further. While looking for fire energy, I quickly found a strong source. I saw a crack with a river of fire in it, where merry fire ferrets splashed. They seemed hungry, which wasn't a good sign. I felt 4 spirits. 3 small ones and 1 medium one. This is an easy task, but what about the new source? The last time I took in an intermediate water spirit, I was a minor spirit. It seems sense that I should take in a small fire spirit to get the element, even if it's weak. It should be easy to assimilate, and I can make it stronger later. I focused on the water in my containers and turned it into bullets. I had to get 3 spirits out of the way so I wouldn't accidentally absorb them. I shot the water bullets at supersonic speed and saw a ferret scream in confusion before turning into energy. Before moving on, I waited until the last particle had disappeared. I wiped my brow and soared toward the last minor spirit, which was still looking for its family. I made an ice sword and landed on its back, where I hit it and cut off its head. The energy of the spirit disappeared right away. I sat down and felt the fire spirit's energy being absorbed as I moved away from the lava river. I wanted to scream, yes, a new element. But I knew the pain would come after. I clenched my teeth and waited. The pain took over my body and spirit, making it twice as bad. I was sweating a lot, but I had to stay awake. The agony was bad, but I could handle it. The discomfort was worse in the first hour, but it became better during the next 4. When it was over, I fell to the ground and smiled. I thought it was worth it. After I found out about the new element, it took me a while to settle down my angry feelings. I couldn't take it anymore, so I went back to my spiritual dimension to find proof that I was now in charge of fire. For minutes, I couldn't take my eyes off my energy sources. The neutral source in the middle blazed like the sun, and the water and fire sources went around it. For benders, the adage that everyone carries an entire universe inside them is literally true. Some of the channels in my body turned red, just like with water. The fire source and channels weren't as cool yet, but they will get better with time. Fire would burn brilliantly in my heart. I pondered again what mysteries the neutral source held as I shifted my attention to it. It was evident that it had benefits, but I felt like there was more to find out. Now, let's see what it means to be a firebender. I stood up and steadied my breath as I started to channel fire energy through my body. There was a big change. Water energy calmed me down, but fire made me feel better, whispering, "Let us go, let us burn, burn, burn." I had to take deep breaths again to relax my restless body. Even heated air was coming out of my nose. Like in the show, firebending requires control because it can do a lot of damage, and a bender must master it. "Okay, steady now," I said quietly and tried again. I breathed steadily and guided the fire energy without letting it take over. Now, let it go slowly. The energy went away, but the fire didn't show up. Okay, I'll include Kai this time. I took charge of the closest water source and treated myself to a cold shower to regain my focus on what truly mattered. With a cautious glance from behind a sturdy tree, I started to scan the area for my opponents. In the strike zone, all I could see was a huge crater. It appeared obvious. Did that attack really eliminate everyone? "So, did you manage to get it?" I exclaimed, still catching my breath from the intensity of the fight. The sound hadn't even bounced off the nearby mountains when I noticed some movement in the dirt at the scene of the attack. How can that even be? A miniature version of the colossal figure, now glistening with a metallic finish, rose from the earth. That's the core part of him. Next time, I must locate it right away and take action. As he locked eyes with me, the transformation began once more. Stones erupted from the earth, linking to his metallic form as his Kai flowed through him. "Sure, I'm available." As he's busy with his gathering, I think it's time for me to make my exit. Everything was wonderful. I'll come by again soon. This time, the feeling of panic worked in my favor. Focusing on the shift was significantly simpler. Just as I felt myself on the brink of collapsing into the barrier space, instinct kicked in. I summoned icy claws on my hand and swiftly sliced through an intermediate earth spirit. The giant, fully restored and vigorous, had hurled him at me one final time. Everything would have been okay, but the spirit's energy got absorbed into me. With all the energy I could muster, I dashed directly toward the barrier. It appeared that the barrier, witnessing such a commotion, allowed me to pass through much more quickly. Finding the most relaxed spot, essentially sinking into the grass at the spirit oasis, I took a moment to let the earth's Kai settle in. At least now I can truly relax. It was a pleasant surprise. The circumstances were average, but I enjoyed myself, was my final reflection before drifting off to rest. I found myself in a puzzling situation upon waking up. On one side, I had acquired a fresh bending art through a 1+1 deal, yet it all unfolded so abruptly that it seemed almost imposed on me. Diving into the deeper layers of my Kai brought the usual outcome, yet it remained just as appealing. My impartial source now possessed 3 planets. Amid the well-known bending arts, a new presence emerged, a sphere of brown energy that seemed strikingly monumental. The source, originating from the defeat of a mid-level spirit, possessed considerable power, just below the threshold of mid-rank. With frequent use, I'll be ready to enhance it in no time. The atmosphere feels charged at the moment, so I think it's best to take a few days to recharge. Everything feels quite unusual. As a low-level spirit, I was limited to one bending art, but now that I've reached mid-level status, I can embrace 2 additional ones. This creates multiple avenues for growth. Perhaps with each new rank, I could receive an extra bending art. If that's the case, at the top level, I could acquire 3 new bending techniques. Maybe with each new level, the variety of bending arts increases exponentially. I started with waterbending, and when I reached the mid-level, I acquired 2 additional abilities. So, at the highest level, I would end up with 6 new ones, not including the neutral source, naturally. Perhaps I could acquire another bending art at this very moment. Engaging in speculation doesn't lead us anywhere meaningful. I'll need to be particularly careful after mastering each new bending technique at the highest level. If I truly acquire that many bending arts, I might begin searching for the more elusive ones. Life bending, death bending, perhaps even spirit bending. For the time being, my attention should be directed towards the core 4. They're simpler to grasp, and established roots for them already exist. Everything else can hold off for now. I need to touch base with my family, unwind with a bath, and then take some time to relax for a few hours. The condition I found myself in while taking in the new source certainly wasn't what one would consider proper rest. After a few days, I felt rejuvenated and eager to explore the new bending arts. It's unfortunate that I'll need to learn them without any scrolls or books. While browsing the library, I came across just a few books detailing stances and techniques for firebending, probably remnants from the war, but it's still insufficient. It'll definitely be more enjoyable this way. I can still recall all the techniques from the animated series, so I'll give it a shot to recreate them. I may stumble occasionally, but I'm always able to pick things up again. I'll begin with firebending. What do I really understand about it? In the natural world, the true firebenders are dragons. They were the ones who instructed the initial firebenders, previously known as the Warriors of the Sun. It seems that their direct descendants are still around, paying homage to dragons and revering fire. Aang and Zuko learned the art of firebending from them. To practice this bending art, I ventured far beyond the city limits, careful to keep my abilities hidden from others. Individuals in this environment are easily influenced and may generate outlandish notions, which ultimately leaves me managing the fallout from their accurate deductions. I'm not sure if it's a special talent or if my experience as a mid-level spirit in firebending plays a role, but the fundamental techniques I had envisioned seemed to flow effortlessly. This encompassed the most favored methods employed by all firebenders. Initially, I dove into the fire blast, exploring it without restraint. I discovered 2 methods for utilizing it. One involves causing it to explode upon impact, while the other focuses on igniting the target. I even attempted to raise the fire's temperature, but it feels like there's a boundary to what I can achieve at this moment. I can enhance it, but taking it too far is not feasible. I had visions of blue flames reminiscent of Azula's. Next, I attempted to create a simple stream of fire, but I found it hard to just let it go from my hand. Over time, I discovered how to unleash streams from both hands, my feet, and even my fingers. I considered giving it a go from a different angle, but I caught myself before proceeding. It was only after engaging with the fiery streams and explosive bursts that the ancient dancing dragon form came back to mind. As I tried to replicate it, I had low expectations, but with every movement, firebending felt like it was leading me to understand how to use it correctly. By integrating specific movements into various techniques, I experienced a distinctly different outcome. In the past, the element seemed remote, as though it didn't acknowledge me as its rightful master. At that moment, it was completely wrapped in my arms. I had taken the lead in the dance. On that day, I found myself in a moment of profound clarity. It was as though a skilled firebending master was guiding my movements, teaching me the ways to master this powerful art of bending. The fire wave I created in that state was just as impressive as what could be accomplished during Sozin's comet. By compressing the fire stream, I forged a fire blade that boasts an even greater range. Once I had honed these techniques, I progressed to the fire wheel I had observed, which offered the benefit of an erratic flight trajectory. In a regular state, I managed to create a fire whip, dagger, sword, and shield, and that was the extent of my accomplishments for that day. The experience of that elevated state left me utterly exhausted. I felt a deep ache throughout my body, resonating on both physical and spiritual levels. The intense flow of fire energy surged through my chi channels, causing them to throb in a way they had never experienced before. Phew, I breathed out, letting a tiny burst of flames escape. I discovered that I was quite a few meters beneath the primary layer of snow. The air surrounding me felt warm, even warmer than freezing. This will surely catch someone else's attention. I found myself remaining in the same position for a few more hours until the pulsing in my channels subsided. Then I utilized waterbending to fill in the snow-covered voids created by the firebending. I refrained from practicing firebending for an entire week, feeling overwhelmed and taking the time to process everything I had done while under the influence of that art. That's how I chose to describe that state. However, nature cannot stand emptiness, and my desire to master bending pushed me to delve deeper into the various forms of bending arts accessible to me, even more fervently than the firebenders who lost the wisdom of the sun warriors. It appears that reaching that enlightened state has also taken a significant toll on my mental energy. The following morning, I contemplated practicing earthbending. I took a moment to stand still, letting my hand glide through the snow, searching for earth beneath it. It was only when I began to sift through the snow with that very hand that a realization struck me. Did I honestly believe I could just dig through thousands of meters of ice with my bare hands? Alright, I'm going to drift off again. I suppose I'm still in the process of bouncing back from the pressure. The following day, I felt mentally rejuvenated. To gauge my preparedness, I began to think about logarithm properties, only to realize I had never actually learned them. Clearing my mind of distractions, I contemplated the ways to connect with the Earth. Reaching it involves sifting through thousands of meters of ice, and it's quite a complex process. Once more, I'm approaching this like a regular individual, I remarked after 5 minutes of pondering how to construct kilometer-long tunnels beneath the surface. Waterbending, ice being a form of water, and my identity as a waterbender. It all connects. I really ought to keep my thoughts to myself. I believed I had left that habit behind in my previous life. In the spirit of earthbending, I dedicated an entire week to crafting a pathway that marked the transition from the ice I had grown to despise to the solid ground beneath. A significant portion of the time was dedicated to constructing the training ground itself. Earthbending can be just as powerful and destructive as firebending, if not more, so I needed a solid platform to practice on without the fear of it giving way. I needed to pack the ice as firmly as I could, forming support columns. Fortunately, lighting wasn't a concern for me. I discovered some glowing crystals that reminded me of those found in the Cave of Two Lovers, Omashu, and Shu Jing. They offered sufficient illumination. Before discovering them, I believed it would inspire me to master seismic sense, a skill that all mole badgers possess and that Toph was taught. Close to the built training area, I opened up all my spiritual awareness and sensed the water source. As I cleared the ice from my path and followed the instincts that pulled me forward, my curiosity about where this journey would lead intensified. After all, ice surrounds me everywhere here, essentially water, yet my senses drew attention to that particular spot in a unique way. It was pretty much what I anticipated, yet the view was still stunning. A complete body of water, in its fluid state. I'm not entirely sure why, perhaps it's the geothermal springs that keep it warm, or maybe the immense pressure prevents the water from changing state. But that's not the main point here. As I attempted to shape the water, I encountered some pushback. This water felt incredibly charged with energy, much like the atmosphere in the spirit oasis of the Northern Water Tribe. Practicing waterbending with this lake water will lead to more effective training outcomes. Awesome, it's clear that all that hard work during practice really paid off. The journey to perfect the new bending art was well underway. That elevated state didn't make a difference here, but at least I wasn't worn out by the end of the day. Earthbending evolved in a consistent and deliberate manner, reflecting the very essence of the bending art. As I engaged with it, I felt an unwavering strength within me. Having the appropriate mindset when engaging with various bending techniques is essential. If firebending represents a dynamic energy, constant aggression, then earthbending embodies a more balanced energy. Holding, waiting. An earthbender needs to be acutely aware of the right moments to strike and when to hold back. After a few days of dedicated practice, I have successfully learned the basic earthbending techniques. The initial action involved lifting soil and rocks into the air. I took my time to master one technique thoroughly before progressing to the next. There's no hurry. Following that was a collection of methods from a style I dubbed earth destruction, ordinary, yet impressive. It involved splitting, crushing, and grinding stones and rocks, along with excavating the earth to form tunnels. A versatile instrument. I recently picked up a new technique, compression. Even with its straightforward name, it caused immense destruction, akin to compressing water, yet with a piercing impact. Let me explain the process. Start with a large boulder, the larger, the more effective, then compress it into a smaller shape, such as a bullet, and launch it towards the opponent. The interesting part is that the bullet's mass stays the same as the boulder's, yet an earthbender seems to have an easier time accelerating smaller stones for some reason. This gift will possess incredible speed, able to penetrate even a Fire Nation tank. After that, I felt the urge to dive back into firebending, so I'll have to put mastering earth golems, stone spikes, and shields on hold for now. I'm determined to master every technique. I simply required a shift in my routine. As I gathered around the table with my family for dinner, my mind wandered to the edible seaweed drifting in my soup. To my knowledge, they aren't cultivated anywhere, yet they show up in our meals during specific seasons. When I inquired with Mom about it, she clarified that they are quite challenging to gather from the ocean, so we typically enjoy them only after especially strong tides when the ocean naturally brings them to the shore. I naturally inquired about the reasons we don't cultivate them. We have an abundance of water, and we already have samples. What more do we require? It seems I'm not the only one with a sharp mind. They've made attempts in the past, but the right conditions for large-scale cultivation have eluded them. Begin by incorporating healing energy initially. We have healers sitting around with nothing to do, so why not let them experiment? I remarked, my interest in the topic fading. I can manage it on my own, but I already have a lot going on. In this manner, they'll establish a base, encounter challenges, and I'll step in when the time is right. In principle, the likelihood of achieving success is considerable. Plants possess a form of life energy, distinct from that of humans and animals. Nonetheless, healers dedicate their lives to discovering new paths for patients, so I believe they can realign their energy in this situation. Absolutely. That didn't even cross my mind. You're so clever, Mom remarked, giving my cheeks a familiar pinch, even though I already look 11. Stay tuned for more. Thank you for taking the time to listen to this video. I'm thrilled you watched the video. If you enjoyed it, be sure to like and subscribe for even more exciting content coming your way soon.